It is big box time, and that's because it's a big model. And as we can see from the box, it's a Scania. And the reason it's so big is because it's in the scale of 1 to 18. We see the Scania branding, and if we go to the end of the box, we can see that this is a Cavallino model. But looking underneath, it's actually an NZG model made exclusively for Cavallino. So it's only available to buy from them.
Let's weigh it up.
The big box goes onto the weighbridge and it's £11 1 ounce, which turns out to be just over 5 kilograms. Now it's time to open the box and see what's inside. First out is a simple one-page leaflet, and we'll look at that again in a moment, after we get out the pair of huge trays. The leaflet is NZG branded, and if we turn it over we get some advice on how to unpack the model, and also a description of some of the functionality. There's some tape to cut at the top of the top tray, and that lets us get out some parts. And also included in one parts bag is a nice pair of white cotton gloves, which are nice if you want to handle something carefully. Cutting more tape allows the trays to be separated, and then we have to follow the instructions and remove 2 pieces of side packaging. And the reason for that is that it allows us to get our hands underneath the bottom of the model so we can carefully lift it out. Out of the box, the first thing we can do is to tidy up the coiled lines. And there are 4 of them, which we can clip into place into holders on the back of the cab. They are modelled with 2 different type of connectors. 2 are push fit, and for the other 2 you need to slightly extend the coils so that you can hook them into the holders. There's another piece of detail to add, and that's a foot plate. And that's a removable item for reasons that we'll see very shortly. It just drops into place on the chassis. Next we need to clip in the 5th wheel. And that's a very simple job. You just position it and push down and it clips in. The reason for these removable parts is that there are other parts included in the bag, and they are special connectors which allow the tractor to be attached to the big law transporter also made by NZG.
Let's weigh it up again.
The giant hand cranes move the Scania onto the weighbridge, and it comes in at £9 4 ounces, what is 4.2 kilograms. And just for size comparison, here is a 1 to 50 scale tractor. With the Scania on its side, we can see that the model is very detailed. The underside of the engine and the gearbox is fully modelled, and the front axle modelling also looks pretty good. Also looking good is the exhaust system, and moving on behind that we have a couple of large tanks. The large scale also allows other detail to be added, such as hoses and cables. The drive shaft to the rear axle is modelled very well, as is the large differential casing. And there are 2 large dampers for the rear axle. At the back there are soft mud flaps, and it's always good to see that there are different tyre patterns on the front and rear axles. Moving on to the cab, and there's a nice fairing on top, and the air horns and stub aerials are modelled. And this version of the model has a very nice set of lights. The side aerials are fine wire, and the roof light is also properly modelled. It has glass, and so it is see-through. Moving to the front, and it looks great in this colour scheme, and the Scania name is nicely embossed. The front grille is also excellent, and the tiny badges are sharply rendered. In this large scale, the lights look impressive, and there's a realistic license plate. The Van Bentum graphics are extremely sharp, and there are excellent mesh steps leading up into the cab. One missing detail is there's no branding on the sidewalls of the tyres, but the wheels are smart looking, and the side fairing is nicely modelled, including the exhaust pipe. At the back, the wheel arch is realistically modelled, and the rear wheels look very smart. The big Scania name is embossed on the back of the cab, and there is other nice casting detail. And there are big coiled lines, and the variety of surface textures is impressive. Moving to the back, and the fifth wheel is nicely detailed. And further back, the rear lights look good with their plastic lenses. And there are wheel chocks, and the Scania name is on the mud flaps. Starting underneath, and the rear wheels spin freely, with the inner ones being separate from the outer ones. Any slight wheel wobble is due to the mounting of the tyres, which can be adjusted, and the steering does achieve a decent angle. The rear suspension does work, and it is very stiff. Out on the Cranes etc. test track, the Scania rolls really smoothly, and of course that's helped by the very heavy weight. Let's have a go with the steering set, and it's equally smooth and traces a good steering angle. At this point we can also test the rear suspension, and it's certainly not too soft. The fifth wheel has got a realistic locking latch, and both cab doors can be opened. That gives you good access to have a look at the detailed interior, and that includes not only the steering wheel and console, but also the insides of the doors. And even the seats have a nice bit of detailing with a seat belt complete with buckle. And don't worry about getting into the driver's seat, because you can raise the armrest. There's another interesting little feature, which is that the steering is linked to the steering wheel. But just imagine driving with gearing set like that. Up on top, the roof fairing can be raised, and if we hot foot to the front, we can open the front grille. And that gives us a little view of some of the equipment underneath. With the front grille open, we can then move on to tilt the cab. But first we need to remember to disconnect all the coiled lines, and then employ giant hands to tilt the cab forwards. And that's well worth doing, because you get a look at the excellent engine. It is modelled in plastic, but it does look very impressive. And it is made up of a number of different components. If you want, you can connect NZG's model of a container trailer. And to do that, you just attach it to the fifth wheel using the clamp, although the trailer hasn't been modelled to accept the coiled line connectors. The degree of movement is all very good, and to get a really impressive large model, we can add NZG's container. This is a great looking model of a Scania Highline in Van Bentum colours. It is very high quality with some excellent detailing, and there's plenty of functionality to make it a very interesting model. The huge size and heavy weight is very impressive, even more so if you add on a trailer. So if you want a large and beautiful model of a Scania, it is excellent.